Hello students, I welcome you all to my easy English class, and today I am going to explain you a very beautiful lesson, that is a letter to God. A letter to God. Yes, the name of the lesson is a letter to God. You might have written a letter to your parent or to your brother or to your principal or to your class teacher, but we are going to read a beautiful story about a farmer who writes a letter to God. So, it is the name of our lesson. It is written by G.L. Fuentes. Yes, it is written by G.L. Fuentes. G.L. Fuentes was born on 11th July 1897 at Lanzarote in the Canary Islands. And he died from cancer in 2002 at the age of 105 years. Now let's move on to the characters of the story. So here we have two major characters, Lencho, who was a farmer, postmaster. Now move on to minor characters, Lencho's wife, postman, Lencho's kids, employees at the post office. Now I am going to tell you the short summary of the story, and this will help you a lot. The story, A Letter to God by G.L. Fuentes, depicts unwavering faith of a farmer in God. It is set in a Latin American country. It begins with a farmer who is expecting some rain to nourish his field of corn. He is confident that harvest is going to yield him huge profits, just like it does every year. As he expected, it does rain, but soon the rain turns into a hailstorm, destroying his whole crop field. The damage poses a threat to the family's survival, as their entire livelihood was dependent on the year's produce. Although disheartened, the family has a robust belief in the Almighty. Lencho decides to write a letter to God, explaining his situation and asking for 100 pesos as a help. He writes his letter and goes to town to post his letter addressed to God. The letter, on being noticed by the postman and then by the postmaster, amuses the postmaster and makes him wonder about the immense faith the farmer had on God. He is tempted to open the letter, read it, and reply to the farmer so as to keep his immense belief intact. But upon opening the letter, he realizes that this reply would require more than pen and paper. But since he has resolved to help the farmer, he contributes from his salary and collects money from his colleagues and friends who willingly contributed for an act of charity. To his dismay, he could only collect 70 pesos, which he puts in an envelope to make it look like a reply from the Almighty. Upon receiving the letter with the money inside it, Lencho is not at all surprised, but instead he gets angry on finding that amount is less than what he had expected. He again writes a letter to God, conveying his disappointment and distrust in the employees of the post office, who he thought had stolen the remaining amount. So students, let's come and understand the lesson in detail, which will help you to write the answers in exam. So the story revolves around Lencho. Who was Lencho? Lencho was a farmer. His house was the only one in the entire valley. It was on the top of a hill. His fields needed a good harvest. He was looking towards the sky, hoping for a rain. During the meal, big drops of rain began to fall. He went out to feel the rain on his body. Now for him, raindrops were like coins. Lencho was satisfied. The drops of rain were like the coins. The big drops were 10-cent pieces and the little ones were worth 5 each. Suddenly, a strong wind began to blow. Lencho was worried. Along with the rain came very large hailstones. They truly did resemble silver coins. The house, the fields, and the hillside were covered with the white hails. Not a leaf remained on the trees. The corn was totally destroyed. So were the flowers. Lencho was sorrowful. They would have no corn that year. Now, Lencho had only one hope, that was help from God. Lencho thought that there was only one hope. It was the help from God. The following Sunday, he wrote a letter to God. He wrote that if he did not help his whole family, he would die. He needed 100 pesos in order to sow his field again and to live until the new crop came. He wrote to God on the envelope, placed stamp on it and dropped it into the mailbox. Now there was a strange address. One of the postmen who read the address laughed heartily and took it to the postmaster. The postmaster was quite a friendly and pleasant man. So how was the postmaster? The postmaster was quiet and friendly and pleasant man. He broke out laughing when he saw the strange address on the letter. He just started laughing. But soon he became serious. He realized that the sender of the letter had great faith in God. He didn't want to shake the writer's faith in God. He decided to answer the letter. The generous postmaster collected money from his employees. He himself gave a part of his salary. He put 70 pesos, all the money he could collect, in an envelope and sent it to Lencho by mail. Lencho had a firm and unshaken faith in God. When he received the money, he was not surprised, but his happiness was just for some moments. When he counted the money, he became very angry. He believed that God could never deceive him. Immediately, he wrote a second letter to God and posted it. The postmaster opened the letter eagerly. Lencho wrote that he received 70 pesos that had been sent by God. He requested God to send him the rest of the money. He asked God not to send the money through the mail. The post office employees were a bunch of crooks. So students, let's come and understand the theme of the story. There is not one but two themes in this story. The first one is faith can move mountains, and we have seen that how Lencho was helped by the postmasters. So when we have firm belief on God, He comes to help us in myriad ways. Myriad means countless, or in many ways. Lencho has immense and honest faith in God. His faith emboldens him to write a letter to God asking for 100 pesos. His honest and innocent faith is what compels the postmaster to help Lencho. And the second theme of the story is that sometimes good deeds go unnoticed. The postmaster helped Lencho out of his own goodwill and compassionate nature. But what Lencho did? But Lencho, having an unquestioning faith in God, felt it was God who had sent money and the post office employees had stolen it. The goodness of the postmaster wasn't recognized. Our good intentions and actions aren't always rewarded. Sometimes they go unnoticed too. But students, it does not mean that we have to stop ourselves from doing the good deeds. Keep on doing. One day you'll get the reward from the God. So, one day your generosity and kindness will bring you the reward. Dear students, there are two kinds of conflict in the story, between humans and nature and between humans themselves. The first one is between man and nature. The conflict between man and nature is shown in the form of the hailstorm which completely destroys Lencho's crops. Lencho had expected some rain for a good harvest. Instead, the weather turned violent and it started raining hailstones. This conflict clearly points that man depends on nature for his life and livelihood, but nature doesn't always act according to man's wishes. Second conflict is between humans. The postmaster helps Lencho, but Lencho, instead of being grateful, blames the postmaster and his colleagues for stealing money. He even goes to the extent of calling them a bunch of crooks. This conflict between the postmaster and Lencho tells us that a man doesn't always believe in another man, and this often gives rise to conflict. Now, students, let's come and understand the irony of the story. Before that, let's come and understand what does irony mean. Irony means the opposite of what is expected. It means when something does not happen according to one's expectation is the irony. So in the story, we expect Lencho to be grateful and happy upon receiving the money, but he is not. Instead, he is furious for not having received the full amount. It is an irony that instead of showing pleasure, he expresses his anger. Also, the postmaster had expected a certain amount of gratefulness on Lencho's part, but instead of being grateful, Lencho blames them for the theft of his money and calls them a bunch of crooks. The irony here is that the goodwill and good deed of the postmaster, instead of getting recognition, is rudely blamed.